Hey, do you want to come over and make a pot of tea, bring your favorite crystals? We could talk about our birth charts, spirits, the latest house spells we've been doing. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm that witch next door. Well, hello, neighbor. Welcome back to another episode of That Witch Podcast. I'm Danny. I'm the witch next door. I'll be your host, your guide, your mentor, your instructor, your spiritual bestie in all things modern witchcraft and cosmic living. I help practitioners of all levels, backgrounds, and abilities work with real magic in their real life. And today's conversation, my friend, is an important one. And it is part of a growing and ongoing conversation. The utilization of AI in witchcraft, magic, tarot, astrology, meditation, channeling, divination, and the like. It's a biggie. Let's get into it. AI. I've been gathering my thoughts about this for a while. I want to first, I'm trying to decide the order to go in here. I want to start by saying that one of the biggest problems with utilizing AI to learn about or develop your witchcraft practice, your astrology studies, creating spells, learning tarot, learning divination, using it for divination, using it as a mode of channeling. The biggest, and maybe not the biggest, that part's subjective and up for debate, but probably the first challenge that I want to warn you against is how wildly inaccurate AI gets every single subject that I just listed and then some. AI is a tool that has been created out of a hot mess of intentions, expectations, standards, levels of capacity of our current society, our current collective. It can never, ever emulate humanistic, organic qualities. Ever. There is not a bone in my body, there is not a fiber in my being that believes it will ever be able to truly or accurately emulate actual humanistic, and even bigger than that, organic traits and qualities. The practices that I listed out, and again, that's just a handful. That's just a handful of examples. The practices that I listed out are both deeply rooted in our humanism and our human experience on this earth, and simultaneously connected to the other realms, the existential layers and dimensions of our existence. First of all, human beings can barely hold a goddamn conversation about true spirituality. In 2026, a form of human has existed for over a few million years at this point. we have evidence, biological evidence, that some form of human has been in existence since well over a few million years ago. And we still can barely hold a productive conversation about spirituality. In what world could a human created tool meant to scan all evidence that's been put onto the internet basically up until now and then regurgitate it to you, how could it possibly offer not just what you need, but even what you're looking for? On a really micro level example, when ChatGPT and OpenAI were in some of the earliest parts of the boom and the trend, I was so curious. I knew how many people were going to assume that they could just use ChatGPT to learn tarot and astrology. Just as two examples. So I went on to ChatGPT and tested and gave it some astrological related prompts, witchcraft related prompts, tarot related prompts. Scary. Scary how confidently the information is delivered to you and how wrong it is. There are probably ways, if you're a pro AI person, there are probably ways that the software is able to technically perform well or technically perform what it's supposed to do. Because there's certain types of information out there that really are quite binary, quite black and white, quite this or nothing in their concept and construction and definition. Spirituality and branches of spiritual practices do not even remotely fall into that category. There is a required level of human understanding and human context that only a human brain can produce in order to effectively teach something like astrology and tarot. So right off of the bat, the reason I do not want you to use ChatGPT or any form of generative AI to learn more about witchcraft, magic, spell work, tarot, astrology, divination, any of it and more is because I'm telling you, myself and so many other incredible, very experienced, very skilled instructors, guides, teachers, leaders in these industries for decades have also tried, experimented, or seen with their own eyes. This is inaccurate. It's giving you wrong information, and it does so quite boldly, very confidently. I was listening to an episode of the Mental Health is Horrifying podcast, which if you've never listened to it before, and you are both a mental health fan and advocate and a horror fan, I highly recommend checking out the podcast. I'll make sure to link it in the show notes below. I was listening to her episode on the Blair Witch Project. And there is this conversation of kind of mass hysteria, mass paranoia, collective delusion, collective delulu. There was this conversation about it that she paralleled to not only themes from the actual movie, but especially in the marketing of the Blair Witch podcast. The Blair Witch Project, and all of my, especially millennial and older listeners, you remember the phenomena of the Blair Witch Project marketing, and it's genius, actually. where it fooled successfully a shocking amount of the public into believing that it wasn't just a movie and that it was real. She connects this concept to what's happening with generative AI. And she specifically talks about how the software is created to form dependent attachment to it. It's literally programmed to stroke your ego and make you feel good so that you keep using it more and more and more, so that you'll keep telling it more and more and more, so that it can basically profit off of you by regurgitating the same information you're basically giving it anyways, or that it's scraping from other sources, especially without consent anyways, then from here, as I said, I don't know that this is the biggest problem with AI. It is a massive one, is the inaccuracy. There are so many other way, way bigger problems and way bigger risks, and already so much damage already being done by the impact of AI usage. I am not nearly as well educated and well versed in specifics, stats, and numbers, but I've done enough reading about it at this point to understand. And honestly, I would be absolutely shocked if you live in this world and you are of age, for understanding, and you have been online at all in the last year, if you haven't heard at least somewhere, at least once, about the negative impacts of AI on the environment, and that those negative impacts on the environment more frequently and are more likely to and are already more negatively impacting communities of color and low income communities as well. So first of all, we're not only having no regard for the environmental impact, the resources that it consumes, the short-term and long-term damage from that, and this negative impact is disproportionately worsely affecting communities of color and low-income communities. If you're a witch, if you're a pagan, if you work and co-create with this earth, with our universe, if you work with the elements, for example, if you work with nature, if you're a green witch, if you're a crystal witch, if you're a kitchen witch, anytime, it makes absolutely no sense to me that those reasons in and of themselves are already not enough to at least warrant pause and thought and questioning and pushing back, finding other ways, trying it the hard way, because why would you want to contribute to something so damaging to so many? Now, all of that being so strongly said, there is something else I've seen and witnessed a lot, and I'm going to talk about it. It is so important that we speak up and that we don't feel silenced or censored in the name of advocacy for the good of all humankind. which is why when somebody is just talking about AI, when somebody is using it, when someone's using it ignorantly, I should say, quite honestly, I think that a sense of nuance has really been lost here. I think that the damage and the negative impact of AI is so strong, and that in and of itself, that evidence has, of course, rightfully so, triggered such a strong guttural emotional response in those of us seeing that and trying to work against it, that I think on the other side, we find a second alternative slippery slope. So several months ago, within the last 6 months, I saw a large creator that I follow in the neurodivergent community. I saw something very fascinating unfold, and it ended up not being the first time I had seen this or would see this. This creator was very, very openly and outspoken against AI, against generative AI. I mean, this person made their stance and their view crystal clear for a long, long time. And they made it very, very clear that they would not be engaging in or agreeing to any type of brand partnership or proposal that promoted the use of generative AI. Now, because this person is neurodivergent, and because so many of their followers are also neurodivergent and or disabled in other ways, at the kind of forefront of any brand deals and partnerships that they do and have done up to date are pretty much, I would say, 100% of the time for those communities. In fact, as I think about it, in all the years that I've followed this creator, I've never seen them promote any type of product or resource or program or service, anything like that, or brand that wasn't for or related to directly helping the neurodivergent community and the disabled community. And this person was approached by another company, a new brand that was developing, and they didn't share the details of what it was. So I can't share that nuance and that detail with you either. But they were approached by a brand that said, hey, we create support and resources for disabled people, for neurodivergent people. We are trying to utilize the capabilities of generative AI to do, and it was something specific. It was some type of specific tool. It was some type of specific software or resource of some type, because the creator said it was the only reason that they consider. It made them pause and go, oh, well, crap. Could this help? Could this actually help people? And it made them pause. And they didn't sign the brand deal. They didn't sign the brand partnership. They turned around to the community that they serve and create content for, simply gave the story and said, what do you all think? This is kind of a conundrum. It's an ethics conversation, my friend. If you listen to That Witch podcast, you know that we revisit this conversation about ethics. And ethics are not always super duper black and white. There are conundrums. There are tricksy situations. The universe gives us these mixy-uppy, these very both and scenarios and experiences and events and opportunities to learn through and grow through. And it's the same thing. Have you ever, there's a really common exercise in like philosophy and ethics classes where it's like you're driving a train and it forks one way or the other, and there's no way to stop the train, and you can only go one way or the other. And on one side, you will hit and kill like your closest loved ones, and there's like 3 of them there. Or on the other side, it will like wipe out like an entire community or an entire country's worth of people. And I'm butchering this. There's probably a way more specific way to describe this scenario. The whole purpose is that, first of all, there's no right or wrong choice, that it's all a matter of open discussion and ethics, and they can be subjective, and this requires nuance and discussion. It's good exercise for our brains to have difficult, nuanced conversations. The problem is we have not created and held safe, meaningful space for nuanced conversations for a really long time, and that those spaces have been getting smaller and smaller. And the spaces for as black and white thinking and as extreme and simple, in my opinion, simple thinking is what is more and more and more welcomed. Sometimes that is hidden under the guise of like, well, we have strong boundaries. No, you have black and white thinking. You're actually being very closed-minded, and there's a difference between having sacred boundaries and being straight up closed-minded. We have to be able to at least have nuanced conversations. The community was being posed, this creators community was being posed with a question and an opportunity to engage in nuanced conversation and share their opinion. This creator was literally saying, please tell me what you think. I'm genuinely curious about your thoughts. I care about this community. Now listen, there were plenty of people that responded wonderfully, respectfully, and either, and took a side, for example. And there were plenty of people who did this plenty respectfully. Bruh, I was also astounded by the numbers of the people in the community that lost their minds on her. Immediately unfollowed, announcing their departure. How dare you? What the fuck is wrong with you? How stupid can you be? And I'm just like, in what world does that help reverse any of the negative impact of AI? Because it doesn't. I'm not saying it helps further AI either. It doesn't like help the enemy necessarily, but it also doesn't help the cause, and you are in danger of harming your cause, because we are talking about a person who's literally on their side, who could not have made it more clear for months, if not a few years at this point, how they felt about generative AI and the stance that they took. And then when they had something come across that made them pause and go, shit, this is kind of complex, and now I'm questioning some things. What does my community think? That was such a horrific response to me. That is, and it requires shedding light on, in my opinion. If we are going to shed light on the negative impacts of AI, and they freaking shine the light, please illuminate the negative impact. Please save at least another person from being misled by or contributing to the negative impact of AI. And my friend, my magical, spiritual, cares so much and so deeply neighbor. Our ability to critically think for ourselves and engage in challenging, difficult, nuanced conversations, discussions, and ideas is not just important, it is downright necessary. the changes that we want to see, the things we really want to dismantle, deconstruct, and rebuild or reconstruct require those skills. They literally require critical thinking skills and the ability to have productive yet challenging, nuanced conversation about different ideas. There are ways to hold sacred boundaries that really do help fight against the negative impact of things like AI. And why would we take out our own soldiers who are literally fighting the good fight with us? Why on earth would we do that? So that's why I wanted to jump on here and talk to you about all this. It's super important and necessary, in my opinion. Please don't use generative AI, ChatGPT, for learning astrology and witchcraft and magic and tarot and about the Sabbats and writing spells, using it as a mode of channeling and meditation. It is programmed by a business. It is programmed by a corporation. The reality is that we live in a world, in a society, in an economy where a business of that level does not give a shit about what they would probably call our silly little spells and our birth chart readings. And while I'm on the note, your skills at creating graphics and flyers and images might not be where you would like them to be. And there is this, I'm a busy, neurodivergent mom or caregiver that's trying to start my own business, and I don't have the time or the resources or the funds to pay people to do X, Y, and Z. And you know what? A lot of people, like you, Danny, or like you, so-and-so, or like you, so-and-so, guess what me and so-and-sos have been doing this whole entire time? Do you think that we weren't busy? And that we weren't neurodivergent while we were doing it? And that a fuck ton of us weren't parents? No, do you know what happened? We had to be okay with our skills being a little ugly for a little while. We had to deal with not having the perfect vibe and aesthetic and skill set that a professional had, or that somebody had who could pay someone to have it for them. Okay, we all had to. We all had to be there. And it does take time, and it does take some elbow grease, and it does take mistakes. Do you have any idea how valuable it is now that I know how to whip up a branded graphic in Canva for my business? I was able to invest in a professional graphic designer. Shout out to Kaylee, eclecticdesigns.co. She's the best of the best. If you're looking for a real amazing human to help you with your branding and your design. Listen, I invested... I budgeted and figured out and invested in someone to help me create my brand elements. And that's it. That's it. I think that a lot of people make these assumptions that business owners, like all of us, get to a certain level because you're used to seeing our faces or hearing our voices regularly, or maybe you see like our follower count, or you'll see people's listener count, and you make these assumptions, you tie those things to money or monetary, and then you assume that that person is paying someone, they must have a team under them, even if it's a small team, to do all of this. No. The vast majority of small businesses and creators are doing it themselves. And sometimes it means you have to stay up later. Sometimes it means you have to work longer hours. Sometimes it means if you don't have the ability to stay up later or to work longer hours because of your responsibilities or your tasks. My little angel girl is having a nightmare about people using AI for the wrong reasons. Do you know what you have to do in those cases? You have to just accept that some things will take you longer to do than they'll take other people to do. And that's going to be okay. There is, I think, one of the most damaging parts of AI is how disgustingly it feeds this impulse for immediate satisfaction. We build great strength and resilience in the ability to delay gratification. It is a skill and it is a muscle, and it has to be worked on, and it has to be something that you ebb and flow with a little bit, but it is so incredibly valuable, and it literally makes our brain stronger. It's good exercise for our brain to delay gratifications. And I really think that it serves this side of us that's like, things deserve to be easier for me. And I don't think that that is this inherently wrong feeling to have. But I do think that it skips the part of the conversation where sometimes the harder things are what sets things up to be easier and easier and easier, or more abundant, or more prosperous, or more fulfilling in the future. And lastly, what I will say is I hate this argument that you are saying that ChatGPT can do it better than you, because especially when it comes to artwork and anything creative, no, the fuck it can't. And there is no argument you could possibly give me to convince me otherwise, because all I see is that ChatGPT created that. I don't know why so many people can't see that it's obvious to all of us that it came from the same software. It uses the same goddamn fonts over and over again. It's the ChatGPT fonts. We all know this. It took 2 seconds. Do you know why it took 2 seconds? Because our human mind is really freaking incredible. What it can do and what it recognizes, and its pattern recognition, and what it can memorize and what it can learn. Put it to good use, you will shock yourself. And then you, not some stupid machine software that was built to just make money off of you and suck you as dry as possible by stroking your ego and making you think it's not doing that. You will get the dopamine hit from the accomplishment. You will get the serotonin from knowing all the progress and growth that you've had. Don't give that away to something so incredibly undeserving. You deserve that. So, this was something that has been on my episode docket for a few months, and I just needed time to really fully decide how I wanted to approach it, and my main points I wanted to say, because episodes like this could be 10 hours long, honestly. And I wanted to keep this as on topic as possible and as productive and informational as possible. So what do you think of generative AI's usage in witchcraft, astrology, learning magic, tarot, meditation, channeling, divination, etc.? Are you new to witchcraft or new to any of these subjects? And is there something out there that you feel like is missing, or a challenge you've encountered? Where have you wanted to, or you have turned to AI because you felt like there wasn't something to supplement it outside of that? Let me help you not turn to something as deeply flawed as ChatGPT and generative AI to nurture and learn and grow something as special and unique and powerful as your personal witchcraft practice. I know that it can feel so overwhelming navigating this spiritual life. It also doesn't have to. And that is honestly what we are all about here at That Witch Podcast with me, That Witch Next Door, inside of That Witch School. Real magic for real life means that magic is already inherently simple. And it's usually us that overcomplicates it. So let's help each other. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that I didn't address or touch on here in this episode that you have questions about, or you would like my thoughts or insights about or suggestions about? You can always send those to thatwitchnextdoor.com/conjurethatwitch. And don't forget about the value of joining a like-minded, safe and welcoming, accessible community like That Witch School. This is a space, it's an online monthly membership that I run privately on Mighty Networks so that we're not subject to the frustratingly massive ocean that is social media platforms, where witches and mystics and astrologers and astrology students and tarot readers and tarot students of all kinds come together to share with each other what they're learning, to ask questions of each other, to support each other. We have libraries of resources and tools and content and classes and workshops and support. We also have live recurring calls every single month, multiple times a month at a variety of different times to hit as many time zones and schedules as possible so that we continue working together. It is this gorgeous blend of safe, witchy, fun, social community, a nice little dash of some self-paced educational content, along with live, ongoing group calls and gatherings with each other. We do shadow work together every month. We do co-working together every single week. We have opportunity to do and develop our tarot practice and deepen our understanding of tarot with each other. We can work on and learn more about dream work together. And That Witch School is pretty freaking elite for taking your astrology studies to the next level, especially if you are really hoping and dreaming to one day become an astrologer. I promise you, being a part of a community with the folks that are in That Witch School, ran by the folks like myself and my faculty that run That Witch School, along with the support, the resources, the calls, the practice, it's pretty priceless. It's pretty priceless in what you can get out of it and the value that it brings. You can browse plans. You can join us today at thatwitchschool.com. Thanks for spending part of your day with me, neighbor. I am sending you all my best on your continued learning journey. Remember, you are not alone. There is seriously so much support for witches out there these days. Until I see you next time, stay safe, have fun, and stay magical, friends. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you learned something, or you just love That Witch Podcast, one of the best things that you can do is share the show with a friend. Just by reaching out and sharing the link or recommending us to somebody is hands down the best way to help us grow our podcast here. So you can head right now into the podcast app that you're listening to, and you can directly share this episode by using your little share link button, or you can just take a screenshot or just mention That Witch Podcast to whoever you're recommending us to, because you can find That Witch Podcast on all major podcast listening platforms. Thanks for being such a great neighbor.